Bring to the stage your first speaker and coach, Mr. Phil Mancuso.
Let's go! First, I have to apologize if I'm looking a little scruffy. TSA confiscated my razor. Not certain what, I was going to maybe shave somebody to death on the plane. Get and that's not the first time that happened. We were at a golf event a couple of years ago, and we wanted to bring some cigars in, and I had one of those sort of guillotine cigar cutters. It wasn't like a pair of hedge trimmers. I can't bring that in here. What? Why? Like, you may hurt somebody with it. Like, what the fuck am I? Come over here. Give me your finger. Let me. I'm going to cut your finger off, or probably just give you a really bad paper cut, because once you put your finger in, ridiculous. Anyway, unrelated, be prepared for a security check on the way out. Hopefully you wore clean underwear. Full body search. So I'm supposed to talk about team. And anybody that knows me probably figured out that this might not necessarily go down the path that one might expect when you're talking about team. And I'm reminded of probably the most notable adage regarding team, which is that there is no I in team. And, I sort of beg to differ. You can't be a part of a team. You can't lead a team. You can't aspire to have a winning team unless you take care of yourself first. And, Charlie Munger, sort of the lesser known of the Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger tandem, talks about invert, always invert. I think the number one key attribute to anyone who is part of a team or leads a team is to first look in the mirror. To first say, what am I doing for this team? Because one can't lead without leading. You have to demonstrate. You have to have the ability to prove that you know what you're talking about, that you know what you're doing. You have to have the ability to contribute to said team. And that's about you. It's not about anyone else. How can you demonstrate the thoughts, the actions, the emotions, the sensibilities of success if you first don't understand, embody, exhibit those abilities and sensibilities and that knowledge? So for me, when we talk about a team, it starts with you. What you bring to the table, what your why is, a little bit of an overused thing, but so important. We just had a town hall, and, one of the things I said was, no matter how much you love your company, no matter how much you love the folks you do it with, you probably don't love them as much as you love yourself and your family. You shouldn't do anything for anyone other than yourself, for the people you love the most. That's why you get out of bed. Not to make your CEO happy, your president proud. You do it for you. And if you don't have that right, you can't be part of a team. You can't lead a team. Next, I feel like you need to be interested. It's another I in team. Tony Robbins would like you to believe that people want to be loved, accepted, and recognized. Probably a pretty good contemplation there. And so being interested in your teammates is incredibly important. Folks want to be heard. To not give them the ability to contribute, by definition, doesn't make it a team. Oftentimes, leaders sort of And this is where it's a slippery slope. Sort of misunderstand contribution and collaboration, with getting too much weigh-in, too much buy-in. At the end of the day, decisions need to be made, and there needs to be somebody that leads the team. So ones that aspire to lead a team or do have to, sort of navigate that fine line of being interested, however, being the person who makes the decision that guides the ship. And unfortunately, that's an I. You have to include. And this sort of goes hand in hand with being interested. When somebody contributes to the team, when you have folks that share ideas and are vital parts of the progress and the growth of your team, of your organization, at some point, going back to Tony Robbins, they need to be recognized. You need to include them. Include them in the reward. Include them in the process. Include them in the consideration and contemplation of future projects. Good leaders empower teammates. Good teammates empower other teammates to shine, to do their best, to contribute. At the end of the day, most businesses can't be run by one person. And success and failure, this is not, when we're done here, whether it be I get off the stage or all the way up till 5:30 tomorrow night, right? There's no one that's going to give you an absolute playbook, an absolute roadmap. And you so often hear, if you just take one thing, right? That's the nuance to success. We could sit here, read a book, I could write a book, and we can give you the blow-by-blow of everything that works. But then what happens one day where somebody zigs when you thought they were going to zag? Your ability to sort of react to that is as crucial a part of success as anything. So, before I go any further, I really implore you to be willing to be vulnerable, be willing to be fluid in your day-to-day. Be understanding that there are no absolutes in life and in business, and that you could be totally right today and that same contemplation is totally wrong tomorrow. And when you talk about team, the willingness and the ability to allow people to fail. We talked about that the other day, and I think it was Kenny, it might have been Frank who alluded to this. We don't look at sales it's sales and sales support. And so often as salespeople, and sort of the overwhelming majority of folks here in the audience are on the so-called sales side of the business. For those on the ops side, let me tell you this, you probably sell more than salespeople sell. There's not a person in any organization that isn't selling somebody at some point in time, for the record. But we talked about, as salespeople, sometimes we get so caught up in the deal, the loan, and my realtor is going to get pissed off at me and the borrower is going to go somewhere else, that we want to squeeze this fucking loan to death. You have to trust. You have to give somebody the ability to succeed or fail. And if they succeed, you high-five them. And if they fail, you talk about it. You communicate. That's not an I, but it is important. And we don't do it enough. Now, they fail twice, it's a harder conversation. Third time, they're out like, you shoot them out of a fucking cannon, right? Also not an I. We're going to do an I's and C's here. So that is an incredibly important attribute of team. There's an implication, that folks are given the benefit of the doubt. That's what relationship is about. Impact. I bring it back to the I here for a second. If you can't have an impact on your team, what good are you to the team? You can't constantly say, hey, somebody else is going to do it. They're going to do it. I'm the leader. I'm above it. Whatever the role might be. Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. I've said this probably 20 times in the last 30, 45 days. The most difficult part of being a leader or a manager is leading and managing. Pretty ironic. It sucks. It sucks to say, boy, you had a shitty month. Not fun, not easy, especially when that person had 5 great months, right? And one of the things that I tried to really impress upon our leaders is you got to have the conversation. Hey, dude, look, hey, 5 great months, 1 bad month. I'm not saying you've lost it, but what's going on? What happened? By the way, don't let it be a month. One of the things that, I've done throughout my career is I want to talk daily. I want to talk intraday. I want to know what's going on. How does that hurt? You had a bad day. Talk to an underwriter. Boy, you did 1/3 of the amount of loans you did yesterday. Why? Well, because I left in the middle of the day. I sent you that email 2 weeks ago. Oh, shit, okay. I don't read emails. No, I do. Sometimes. Or maybe they were underwriting 203K loans for borrowers with 540 FICO score, and it takes twice as much time. Okay, I was just asking. Makes sense. And when you cultivate that environment of communication, of collaboration, all of a sudden those questions, okay, are more easily asked, and those answers become more accessible. They know that they're not on the chopping block every time they do something wrong. To stay on the impact, I can't stress this enough. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And you can't be that weak link. And one of the sort of difficulties in trying to make an impact is the nuance of staying in your lane, but coloring outside the lines a bit. As Walt Disney used to say, plussing it. Oftentimes, I'm asking people to ask the next question. If you know your job is to move this, piece of paper from here to here, is that really your job? Do you make sure it stayed there? Did it get there on time? Did you do it efficiently? Was it the right size paper? I don't know. They just told me to move a piece of paper. When you close the loan, is that the end of the journey? How many folks don't pick up the phone, call the other realtor, the other attorney, walk into and I know a lot of this is mobile and remote nowadays, but forget about walking into the shop that referred you to the loan. Go walk into the shop on the seller's side of things. Hey, how was the transaction? Work for you? It was great. Send me another one. I don't just represent buyers. I'm on both sides. Get me in touch with everybody. It was a little bit of a challenge. Hey, will you give me another opportunity? What was the challenge? I'm going to double down. I'm going to come through. One could argue that our job ends at the closing. This is an example of how it does not. Invent. A successful team can't stay successful without progress. I've said this before. MySpace never saw Facebook coming. Blockbuster thought Netflix was a flash in the pan. Don't care how many loans you closed last month. Don't care how many people you recruited. Don't care how many great NPS scores you got. 36 years in this industry, gone in a flash. You have to constantly be innovating. You have to constantly demand that of the folks that you work with, that you work for, that work for you. Context, another C. You're only as good as the last loan you closed, the last month you had. But that doesn't mean you can't revel in that success. It doesn't mean that it has to be a miserable contemplation. All right, you bunch of losers, last month, fuck you, let's go. I may have said that once or twice, but the point, it was like in 1989 when you could say that, right? But it could be, hey guys, they're catching up. We don't know what rates are going to do tomorrow. Hey, we had this, by the way, the world didn't end when, they had this, conclusion to this realtor, court case. But we don't know what's coming down the pike. What's next? CFPB's back. Don't let them see this, by the way. So, we could talk about how yesterday was great, but it's meaningless in terms of what we're going to do tomorrow. Even though this word's reasonably related, I threw it in because I'm a big Disney guy. Imagine. What would my career look like if? What would my business look like if? And as with everything, and I can't, to me, if you take one thing away from this, it's that I've found there is no singular answer to anything. That success is on the margins, is found in the margins. It's a nuance, and for me to sit here and say, I'm going to become the fastest, downhill skier in the world, right? Is ridiculous. So that element of shoot for the stars, your feet have to be on the ground to some extent as well, right? But you have to be courageous. You have to dare to dream. You have to sort of reach for that success. If you've properly constructed your team, there are going to be teammates that are sort of rooted in reality. Frankie Wholesale, for example, he sends out these reports and, for a sales guy, right? It's like, hey, we need this many clears. We need this many submissions. So we could sit here and talk about how we're going to conquer the world. It starts with how many submissions we got yesterday. And you're sitting here thinking big and kicking back. And by the way, we were half our goal yesterday. Not really, but... So that balance of, sort of trying to become something that's never been, and the reality of that can never happen unless you take care of right now, of the easy stuff, is oftentimes where success is made and lost. And this next I helps with this. Immerse. Big hockey fan. not necessarily a New York Rangers fan, but my kids are, so I became one. And so we're watching the Rangers. And I watched them almost give it away to the Carolina Hurricanes, and I watched them lose to the Florida Panthers. And I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan, and I'm watching the Oilers lose to the Panthers. And here's what I see. I see teams with superior talent that don't want it. Mika Zibanejad and Arturi Panarin, incredibly talented guys that are just simply not willing to lead with their nose. Very casual. Ironically, Peter Laviolette, who coached the Rangers, there's a video of him online, and I don't know who he was coaching. This was years ago, and the team had just lost a game, and now they're in the first or second intermission of the second game, and he's like, you know what? That was fucking casual. And that's the word. How often are we too casual about our job? I'll do it tomorrow. I was having a conversation about one of our team members who just wasn't really producing to the standard we want. That leader gave me nothing but excuses. They underwrote okay, they did this, they did that. Bullshit. Bullshit. Too fucking casual. Every day matters, every second counts. I said this before. There's nobody that loves what they do more than me. I've been in this business since I was 18 years old. I love a lot of the people in this room. I love EPM. I'd rather be in Hawaii right now on an island with my family. If you're going to do this, if you're going to put in the time, make it fucking count. For you. For not for your team. How bad do you want it? How casual are you going to be? Got 3 referrals from a realtor for the last 6 months. This month, she only gave me 2. Why? Does it matter to you badly enough that you pick up the phone, that you walk in the office? Hey, I was down a referral this month. What's going on? How often do we just explain it away? Bad day, bad month, bad week, bad market. I was away for a couple weeks. Excuses. I've said this before. Obstacles are excuses for losers and opportunities for winners. If you don't think that there's not another loan officer that's stepping into that realtor office to get that one referral that you didn't get this month, and that it won't become 2 in a couple months and 3 in a few months after that, you're wrong. Ask Blockbuster. Ask the LA Dodgers, the New York Yankees, 2 of the most storied franchises. What do they have? 1 championship between the 2 of them in the last 20, 30 years? Whatever it is. And in a COVID season for the Dodgers? You can't be casual. It's not business. That's life. Be casual in your life. You've got to hate losing more than you like winning. That's what winning teams do. We're going to have Nick Saban later on, and I've reposted this on Instagram. By the way, El Presidente _EPM if you don't follow me. And he said, mediocre people hate high achievers. They're filled with excuses, and they're jealous. That's I'm saying that. He didn't say that. Don't let them drag you down. Get them off your team. Don't make worse, don't make excuses for them. My last I, illuminate. Information is power. Most folks are afraid of information. You want to know why? They don't want the truth. You have people like that on your team, get rid of them. Successful people understand why they're successful. Guarantee you 5-6 hours from now, whatever it is, Nick Saban's going to be talking about the process, the preparation. They had a system. The system. You've heard that, right? I mean, what do you think? They just show up every practice? What are you going to do today? Every game, we're going to run, I don't know, get in the huddle, make it up. So what are those decisions based on? Right? Why are they running that play? Why are they practicing that particular discipline? It's based on information. Smart people use information to guide their path, to pave their success. Weak people twist the information, discourage the distribution thereof. Can't tell you how many times I've been in a meeting where somebody has said something is impossible and then we break down the numbers. Oh, the numbers. People don't like numbers. Oftentimes, numbers do not lie. I can only do thus and such. Okay, well, how long does it take you to do one of those things? About an hour and a half. Okay? 8 hours in the day, divided by an hour and a half, give you a half hour to fuck around. So that you can do 5 of those things, right? Okay, yeah, that math works. You just told me you could only do 2 of them 20 minutes ago. Bop, 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 bop. Show of hands. How many people look or run a report every day? Every day. Half-ish, maybe less. Shame on you. Every fucking day, run a report. Run multiple reports. How many leads did I get? What did I do this time last year? Last week? Last month? Where were we this time last month? How many loans did I get from this realtor, from this insurance company? How many loans did this underwriter underwrite last week, yesterday, tomorrow? Comp it, look at it. How many people, show of hands, run that same report? And in some instances, this is not going to apply, so don't misunderstand me. More on the ops side. Run that report potentially multiple times a day. Even less. If everyone knew how to succeed, we'd all succeed. I go back to the hardest part of leading and managing is leading and managing. I don't know, they know what to do. I do. How do they not know what to do? Because they don't. If they did, they'd be you. So, why would you want to run a report on the ops side more than anything, on an intraday basis, but also on a sales side if you're distributing leads or if they're sort of, kind of a round robin? Information is power. You got a slow morning. We got to fix that. What's going on? We're falling behind. Losers don't like to be micromanaged. Winners don't have to be micromanaged. Somebody has a problem with you looking at the numbers, you better have a problem with them because their performance probably sucks. The stories we tell ourselves. Inherently, we don't want to fail. We just don't know how to succeed. What good teams do, what the leaders of those teams do, is help people succeed. And you do that by first looking at yourself, by second being interested in those people, third including them in the process, involving them in the outcome, in the decisions. By you stepping in and leading by example and therefore having an impact on the outcome. By you being innovative every day, by never being satisfied. By imagining what no one else has ever imagined. What's potentially possible that no one's ever contemplated. by immersing yourself in the process and the results, not because it's required, but because it's necessary. It's your life. And by being willing to shine a light on the results, for better or for worse. Because if this is important, you need to celebrate the success, and you need to understand why that you failed. The good news is we're at a point in this industry, right, where if you're sitting in this room, you've effectively weathered the storm. You get most of what I just said. And in fact, I could probably learn more from you than you can learn from me. But that doesn't mean that if you're honest with yourself, if you look in that mirror, that you do it every day, that you recognize it all the time, that you haven't become soft in moments, accepting, understanding. It's lonely at the top. I've had people apologize for me countless times. Phil's an acquired taste. Choo-choo. I don't know. I've never worked with someone who's great at what they do that didn't like me. Whole lot of people who sucked hate me. Thank you. And I've got two words for those people, and they're not thank you. And you should too. You should too. Do you want to be casual? Look where the Rangers are. I mean, is Sam Bennett a better player than Arturi Panarin? Hell no. Who wanted it more? Take your fucking head off, you step in my zone. Versus this bullshit. Oh, I'm going to get the puck. Dangle. Huge Van Halen fan, if you didn't know from the Running with the Devil intro. David Lee Roth, the greatest frontman in the history of rock and roll. Eddie Van Halen hated him. You know, successful people are misunderstood at times. And now you put two successful people in a room, fireworks. Great things came from those fireworks. Michael Anthony and Alex Van Halen didn't do their job, because if those two guys were smart, they would have figured out a way to smooth that fucking thing out. We would have never had Sammy Hagar and the Gary Sharon experiment. You know, the importance of team. You know, nobody more likable in that band than Michael Anthony. He's just worried about drinking Jack Daniels and playing his bass line. He should have been in their ears. Dude, I don't know. Eddie's a pretty good guitarist. Dave's a really good singer. He has shit together and he runs our business good. Team. We sit here and we blame Eddie and Dave, and I have a different opinion on that. I look at Alex and Michael. Alex, you know Alex was on Team Eddie. He's a piece of shit. How many people on your teams do that? Get rid of them. Get rid of them. Anyway, I've got 10 more minutes, but time is precious. So I always like to open it up to questions. Ask anything you want. And if we don't have any questions, or not that many, I'll give you back some of your time.
Some Mancuso minutes about direction of rates. I remember the tag last year where we talked about SVB and things of that nature. Where we come from since then, and where we're going.
Yeah. So yesterday was a fairly significant day. We had the CPI report, which was a real shocker. Across the board, whether it be headline, whether it be core, whether it be year over year, great numbers for rates, bad numbers for high inflation. There's moderation there. It's one report. and then we had the Fed announcement. You know, we rallied in the morning. We gave some of it back. This morning we opened up, positive again. So round numbers were sort of even with where we were after the announcement. You know, here's what I'm going to say, and I did sort of cut a video on it last night. And today I think supports what I said last night. I think that yesterday will be remembered as a turning point. I think yesterday will be remembered as a dovish, and for those that may not know, you know, if you're looking at the economy or interest rates, dove means that, you sort of advocating towards lower rates, a worse economy. A hawk means that you want higher rates. I think net, the Fed was dovish. The singular thing that wasn't dovish was the dot plot. You know, and if you look at it, I mean, it was bad. I mean, you know, you were talking about many market participants saw rates lower in 24 and in 25 that in May, I think May was the last meeting, because they skipped February, than they did in June. So consequently, I think everyone was pretty happy with yesterday until they saw that chart. There wasn't an immediate reaction. But then as he kept talking, they're like, well, you know, we don't like this. What I said was their dots are meaningless because it's driven by the data, right? So if the data continues to worsen, and I fully expect that it will, that you're going to see rates moderate. But as I keep saying, I want to caution everyone here in the industry. The likelihood of 4% interest rates, of sub 4% interest rates, is extremely remote. Somebody will have to launch a missile, which unfortunately is possible, right? There needs to be more bank failures, which if you looked at the FDIC report, there's about 60 of them that are on the brink. You know, no doubt these marked held to maturity assets are a huge problem. And if you watch The Big Short, and when Michael Burry was asked by, the one kid in the office, are we going to go out of business? Part of it was his bet was right. And he said, I'm not wrong. I may be just early. The penalty of being early is what we call carry. They were the interest cost on those insurance contracts that he took out were suffocating him, right? So what's happening now is a lot of this debt was actually funded by debt. They're buying all these mortgages with lines of credit and such. And so now you're clipping coupons at 2.5%, 3%, and the market's at 7%, and you're paying 5 or you're paying 10. There's only so long you could sustain that. Banks and holders of MBS, not all, but many, are being suffocated by the carry. And so ultimately, what the value of these securities are on the balance sheet is meaningless in the world of, hey, I'm going to make money. If they can hold them to maturity, as it's called, right? Then all it is they made a really shitty investment and they're collecting 2.5% for 30 years. But they're not losing money. It's the ones that require, that live off of the ARB and off of debt that are being suffocated. The longer rates stay higher, which at a minimum, we've got at least another 4 months in this range and at least another 2 years of what we would have considered, say, elevated rates relative to 2021 or, we're going to be at historical levels, 5-6% mortgage rates. The odd occasion, maybe we dip to 4 3/4 here and there because, the pendulum always swings one way or the other. And when you look at the numbers illuminate, right, there is no refi boom coming. It can't. Too many of these loans are held at too low interest rates. And unless they cash out, and it doesn't make sense to cash out if you're going to triple your interest rate, double your interest rate, it's not coming. So do I think that we're looking at an easier market rate-wise come August? Absolutely. I'd be shocked if we were not. The summer is never good for the economy, good for these reports. I think it kind of starts next month. But unless something big happens, a so-called swan event, There's nothing coming to save us. And I'll close with this. Unless the last 40 minutes was just me blowing hot air, we shouldn't be looking for that Savior. It starts with us. Invert. Always invert. Thanks, everybody.